seems like things are only getting worse for Ubisoft. Today's video is by Legendary Drop. As always, links are in the description down below. While you're down there, like, share, favorite, subscribe, all that good stuff. And without further ado, let's begin. So Legendary Drop had the chance to talk to Ubisoft devs, and apparently things are much worse than we thought.
Could have imagined. After my last video chronicling the rise and fall of Ubisoft, I had both current and former Ubisoft developers reach out for comment. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the issues that the studios face.
You know it must be bad at Ubisoft for past developers to be reaching out to a YouTuber who, let me see here real quick. I mean, Legendary Drop has definitely been picking up steam. I remember like when he was only like at 30k subscribers. He's still under 500,000 and they're reaching out to him to talk, which is pretty impressive.
Face today from the perspective of their own employees. Everything from Me Too movement allegations to agenda-driven content.
Bro, the Me Too movement slowed down so many things. Mind you, the Me Too movement, I believe, was necessary for a time. It brought up a lot of unsavory behaviors in the industry, and a lot of bad people got put away, but unfortunately a lot of good people got punished for no reason, and a lot of things slowed down that had no business slowing down.
I want to contrast the comments made in these interviews with what we've seen from Assassin's Creed Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws. This company has a deep-rooted leadership issue, going as far to think that the vast majority of online criticism is just a toxic minority of gamers. This company, and that's
one thing company, like, it's crazy to me because companies have this whole thing. Well, when you're an employee anyways, when you're an employee, the bosses will tell you the customer is always right. When it comes to fast food, hey man, if a burger isn't selling well, you know what, they take it off the menu. If you go to a store and they have some type of grill there and season after season it's still there, you know what, they don't restock it anymore. But for whatever reason, in the video game industry, which is art, the consumer, the person who is appreciating your art, if they don't enjoy it, they're wrong, which is something I just don't understand. I mean, I am the consumer, I am giving you my money, and if I don't like your product, I'm not going to give you my money. Why are you arguing with me about the fact whether my opinion on liking something or not liking something is correct? It's an opinion and it's my money. I am the consumer, you are the producer. Producer makes product, consumer says, is product worth buying or not the other way around.
Leadership think that they are on the righteous path. Little do they know, it's a dead end. Assassin's Creed Shadows has been steeped in controversy and criticism since its initial reveal. Online discourse surrounding the game has been almost entirely negative, with long-term fans of the franchise, general audience, and Japanese audiences up in arms over the creative liberties that Ubisoft has taken with the depiction of Yasuke, the fabled Black Samurai, and feudal Japan. Japanese creators, as well as just random bystanders, have taken to Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube and Reddit, voicing their concerns offended by the game's representation of their history and culture. Inaccuracies like using Chinese architecture instead of Japanese, the legitimacy and relevance of the game's protagonist Yasuke, and even going as far as stealing a flag and imagery from the Sekihara Teppo Tai, a historical reenactment group where the company had to formally apologize for not asking for permission to use their materials. Ubisoft...
You know how they could have avoided all of this? This is happening on an alternate reality Earth. Boom. Boom. Everything fixed. This is an alternate history. This is an alternate reality. None of this is real. Time periods have changed. People are in the wrong places. You know what would be insane is that the first American they see was like Abraham Lincoln, you know? Or like Donald Trump. Just put Donald Trump as the first American to ever reach Japan, or how they used to say, the Japans. That would have fixed all their problems. They should have leaned into the inaccuracy so much that people would have never taken it seriously, and this would have fixed all their problems.
Ubisoft's adventure into Japanese history has been a complete disaster, and it's only going to get worse. On September 11th of 2024, an article was penned by the New York Times titled "The Fight Over a Black Samurai in Assassin's Creed." The writer, Zachary Small, misrepresents the controversy and player concerns as merely those of a toxic minority of angry Western gamers, and the entire time he fixates on the race of Yasuke and not the broader implications at play in Ubisoft's mishandling and the frank disrespect for Japanese culture and history. This article was a collaboration between Ubisoft and the New York Times in an attempt to redirect the discussions surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows and minimize the feedback. The writer spoke with Kazuma Hashimoto, a consultant and translator for the games industry, later to be found out to be an employee.
X-Suite Baby Inc. employee caught running New York Times hit piece against gamers. Like, again, if Yasuke wasn't... Because, like, you guys have to understand, Yasuke is not the problem. He's definitely the crux of the issue. If they had not chosen Yasuke to begin with, people would not have scrutinized Assassin's Creed as much as they did. They wouldn't have gone as far as they did, because it's kind of like, I work in the car industry, right? And sometimes when we deliver a car, maybe it's not as clean as it possibly could be. And if the client comes and they notice that the car isn't clean, they start looking for other imperfections. Oh, wait a second. I didn't notice that scratch before. Oh, this or that. I work in used cars. And it just takes one mistake for people to start looking for multiple other mistakes. And in the end, that could end up costing you quite a bit of money, which is what's happening with Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Of Sweet Baby Incorporated that did consultant work for Ubisoft, but Hashimoto claimed that it was people in the West who were upset with seeing Yasuke as a samurai, and that many of the online negative comments were written in Japanese, appeared to be roughly translated from English, effectively hand-waving the increasingly loud and valid concerns of the Japanese, asserting that it's all made-up outrage. Nothing more than the gamers' war against DEI or inclusivity in video games. I find it all too poetic and predictable for a AAA publisher to brush off player concerns and use their connections in the media to try to steer public discourse and sentiment into a favorable direction. All of these claims made by the New York Times, as well as other writers, are patently false. You can see the criticisms of Ubisoft's recent releases and the future release in Assassin's Creed Shadows everywhere. It's impossible to ignore. Videos and promotional material ratioed by dislikes and comments in mass numbers. Videos like mine and many others reaching widespread appeal because we have that many people that agree or share similar opinions. With that said, I couldn't imagine that it was possible for anyone to ignore this level of feedback, and Ubisoft has to be seeing it. So I spoke with a few developers from Ubisoft to shed some light on these issues.
All right.
I started off by asking how Ubisoft internalizes and discusses general criticism from players and the rest of the industry, whether that's its repetitive design, agenda-driven content, or predictable games.
I'm going to say that the heads of Ubisoft believe that if they just keep putting out games that appeal to whoever is the loudest, and they ignore all of the glaring issues in the company, they'll be able to make money because the consumer is dumb and they don't know what they want.
They responded saying, at a high level, they rarely talk about it. At a project level...
They don't even... Well, they just completely ignore the problem. Okay. You know, that's generally how you solve issues in the real world. If you have a child and they're crying because they're hungry, you know, like an infant, and you just ignore it, eventually, that child will stop crying. Permanently. I am not a doctor, and this is not medical advice.
Well, they brush it off as toxic gamer talk. As Asmongold correctly pointed out in a video of his, Ubisoft is filled with toxic positivity that prevents any growth.
I honestly hate toxic positivity with a passion. Like, not correcting people when they're having bad behavior. Like, I used to work in this place where I had a colleague that was really, really good at one part of his job, but was terrible at everything else. And the managers wouldn't correct the negative behavior because they wanted, like, hey, we need to keep a positive environment. We need to make sure everyone's happy. We need to make sure everyone's having fun. You know what's the most important thing about running a business? Making sure that the business runs properly and making sure that your employees are working correctly, which is something the management could never do because they wanted to stay positive. And then many months down the line, it created a lot of problems with the team because management did not want to be negative.
I then asked, what about the Japanese community's backlash over Assassin's Creed Shadows? It's obvious that they haven't done their research, and even the smallest details are going to be noticed by a culture that's as proud as the Japanese. They responded by saying that the criticisms haven't been talked about, and they've only issued demands that we mustn't engage with discussion on that topic publicly.
Dang.
Meaning everything that we've set up into this point, all the criticism that we've had over the years for Ubisoft games, even that of the industry itself, has fallen on deaf ears. I don't know if it's sad or if it's somewhat, it's somewhat cathartic to have that validated. I mean, it's the main complaint that the vast majority of gamers have had over the years, which is that these companies aren't listening to us.
Well, one thing you can at least take comfort in this. It's not that they're dumb and not listening. Or no, it's not that they don't understand. It's that they're just not listening. Which, in a way, like he says, is a little cathartic. Because you're like, okay, at least... Well, no, they are a bunch of idiots for not listening to their consumer base. But it's not like they're hearing what we're saying and then just mismanaging. They're just straight up not listening and mismanaging. Which, for whatever reason, does make me feel a little bit better.
In this case, I have developers that are telling me, yeah, they're not listening to you. One, because they don't want to take criticism, and two, because they don't know how to differentiate bad from good criticism. I think this is my patented catchphrase by now, but when you have this much negative discourse surrounding your games, you need to be listening, regardless of whether or not it's good or bad feedback in your eyes, regardless if you align with these people's political beliefs or social political beliefs.
Someone at Ubisoft has to convey the message that you will make more money if you just listen a little bit. If someone at Ubisoft could get to the higher ups and get into one of those boardroom meetings and explain to them that right now we have this much money, but we could have this much money, okay, which is a substantial amount more money than we had before. We only had this much. Now we could have this much, but all we have is this much because we're not listening. So if we want this much money and we start, who knows, maybe in the future we could even have this much money, but we're going to have to listen. So if someone can just figure out a way to get to the devs so that we could actually have that conversation with them, I'm sure it's going to work.
Whatever it might be. None of that matters. When you have your games on fire as much as Ubisoft games have been lately, you need to put those fires out somehow. And the only way that you can do that is by listening to them and implementing whatever feedback you possibly can into your games to make them better. Regardless, the other thing is, I'm sorry. I am sick of, I am disgusted by the blatant, feigned virtue over how much they care about Japanese culture and history. I'm sorry. You are bastardizing Japanese culture and history for profit. That's what you're trying to do here. You're not trying to make a history piece. We know that. It's very loosely based on Japanese culture and history. Look at you guys. You put out a Torigate figurine, a half Torigate figurine with your characters on it without knowing the cultural relevance of the half Torigate? After Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Do you have any idea what that...
I'm not gonna lie. Not the best marketing move. But at least they're trying.
That means to these people? What's wrong with you? At the end of the day, it all comes down to leadership. When you look at Ubisoft's messaging, the lackluster delivery of titles like X-Defiant and Star Wars Outlaws, the inaccuracies and screw-ups with Assassin's Creed Shadows, you see a developer that has no clear plan or vision for what players want, what good games look like, or how to even do their job. I took the time to talk to the Ubisoft developers about workplace culture, about the initiative that they've taken for diversity hiring, and what happens behind the scenes at Ubisoft, and it's why
people should be hired strictly because of merit. Whether you're a man or a woman, you should only be considered for the position because of merit. Your skin, your color, your gender, your beliefs, your orientation should have zero implication in the hiring process. And if the best team for the job is 100 white dudes, I will hire 100 white dudes over 30 black guys that are not qualified, okay? I just want the best of the best working on the project, and that's how it always should be. If it's 100 women, then god damn it, put 100 women on the team.
Wild to see how accurate some of the assumptions that have been made by myself and others. Now, continuing my conversation with one of the developers, I wanted to find more about the workplace structure and management. And seeing as though the company...
One thing I will say about Yasuke, it is kind of cool how you're just like a foot taller than everybody else. So that is a little nice. Again, they could have easily solved this issue if they were like, this game takes place in an alternate Earth.
Has had initiatives that have been put in place to make the workplace a little bit more diverse. I asked, what benefits have you seen? Is there more diversity in thought, or is it creating a more one-sided environment? They said that so far the initiative hasn't had any impact on the team that I'm a part of. However, it's clear that some topics are taboo. What happened is now that people end up in a meeting with HR for trivial stuff, not adding smiley faces to a message or adding an exclamation point at the end of a message because some people are reporting it for harassment.
HR, the introduction of HR into businesses has slowed down the progress of businesses by so freaking much. Now, I will admit, it does have some positive in it. Definitely, it does have some positive because harassment in the workplace, not okay. But complaining that there isn't a smiling emoji, or like I don't really use emojis when I text people. If you look at the text message between me and my fiance, you would think most of the time I'm mad at her because there ain't no smiley faces, ain't no hearts, ain't none of that stuff. It's dry in my text messages. I love her. She knows that I love her, and I know that she loves me. You could not tell that by her text messages. So for you to like, I don't even, first of all, a company that even takes the time of day to address the issue of putting an exclamation point at the end of the message or not putting a smiley face at the end of a message and having that be an HR meeting is doomed to failure. As a company CEO or the head of the HR department, when someone comes to you with a complaint like that, it should be probably ignored, or you should probably go, oh, this employee is 100% going to be problematic in the future.
One of the things that wasn't in your video is that Ubisoft had some controversy during the Me Too period, letting go of a manager in high positions, and some left on their own because they knew they'd be discovered. I then asked, what was the impact of this in the workplace? They responded by saying the editorial direction and overall mindset shifted from the boys club to safe content. Reaching for plain characters like Kay in Star Wars is a perfect example of this. The idea to have beautiful characters such as Baldur's Gate or Uncharted is met with distrust.
Here's the issue. It went from boys club to safe content. But the reason why Ubisoft was able to become the mega company that it is today is because it was making games with the boys club mentality. So its clientele, its main consumer were all part of the boys club. And now everyone who's been in this boys club for what, 15 years now? I don't know how long long this has been going on for. Now they're shifting to safe content, but your clientele hasn't changed. Your clientele is still boys club. And guess what? Most people in boys club do not want safe content. I'm not playing God of War so that I could go play Ironwood. Okay, wink wink, nudge nudge, Santa Monica. Shorten that shit in any further games. That's not why I play the God of War franchise. I play the God of War franchise because I can grab a Wolfer, I think they're called, and then rip the bottom part of its jaw off of its face while removing some of its torso while I'm at it. That's why I play those games, is because I can't legally do that in real life.
The developer shared sentiments saying that safe content also leads to limited opportunities on the gameplay side. Even for Star Wars, we had to work with Disney, which would have shut down most attempts at depicting a true criminal underworld with cruelty and drama.
Yeah, like for example, I still haven't played Star Wars Outlaws, but from what I've heard, You're not really an outlaw. Like, you can't just run up and start shooting civilians or animals. Like, why? Why? I am an outlaw, okay? Like, Star Wars Outlaws should have been rated M. Should have been rated N, but unfortunately, it's tied to Disney. So we're never going to see that Star Wars Outlaws rated M video game.
When you put this developer's perspective in line with the recent failures and controversies at Ubisoft or any AAA developer at this point, it all makes sense. An overcorrection in sensitivity brought on by the boys' club days that many studios experienced during their early years. As such, many games today lack the teeth and grit that players crave because those things are seen as problematic or unsafe to make in the workplace. Don't use emojis or exclamation points. You could offend someone. Holy shit. How soft have we gotten? It reminds me of the time where the Helldivers 2 community manager went on a ban spree on their Discord because players were using a throw-up emoji on furry art that was posted in their Discord. Sometimes people need to be offended. Well, I'm gonna stand on business, and I'm not accepting furries. Nope. I draw the line. To try to resist the pull yourself up by your bootstraps tirade. Friction on some levels is necessary in life. Now, that doesn't mean that people should be allowed to openly harass others, but there are major issues that arise when you have emojis that can get you fired. This overreaction and overcorrection leads to a workplace that is actively hostile towards freedom of thought, expression, and criticism. As one of the interviewees mentioned earlier, they noticed a culture of toxic positivity. From my perspective, toxic positivity is fake people saying fake things, and in the case of Ubisoft, making fake products. Nobody wants to live their entire life being terrified that someone is going to misunderstand them. And when you're at a...
You know what this is? I'll tell you exactly what this is. Back in high school, this is straight up high school drama. Back in high school, I had more girlfriends than guy friends. I was hanging out with more girls. And I got a sneak peek into the world of women. Well, high school. I would like to believe most women grow out of this behavior when they become adults, but then again, I'm not a woman. But I had this one friend that whenever this girl would show up, she'd be like, "Oh my god, I miss you so much, slay queen. I love you. Oh my god, I haven't seen you in so long." And then as soon as she left, she was like, "I can't stand that bitch." And then I was like, "But you just told her how much you missed her." And it's like, "Yeah, I did, but like I hate her." And I'm just like, I did not understand it. That is toxic positivity. And that's what's happening at Ubisoft right now. Is that people are being nice, people are being kind, people are being encouraging, and then behind closed doors they tear each other apart. And then we get shit products like Star Wars Outlaws.
At a studio like Ubisoft, and you're not even allowed to make characters attractive, otherwise it might upset people at the studio, you have a problem.
Who cares? Who cares if people are upset at the studio? What matters is the consumer buying the product. That's what matters. Okay? Not to be cynical or mean, but if you're a company, your main objective is the client buying the product? Yes, great. It doesn't, like, okay, listen, if you're making God of War 3, remove Ironwood, remove all the sappy stuff, make or return to form, brutal, angry, violent. And then they outsell every new generation God of War. And people at the studio become upset. Oh, what is that? Who cares? We just broke all of our profits. We're making more money. I can now give everyone here bonuses. I can approve everyone's vacation time. I can give you guys more time off. Why? Because the company is making money. Company doesn't make money. Employees cannot take benefits from company. Company makes money. Employees can benefit from company's profits. Get it through your heads. Your emotions and your feelings towards the product is irrelevant in the long term. What matters most is the consumer going to buy said product?
This culture of fear and forced uniformity stifles creativity and innovation. It's no wonder that Ubisoft is struggling to produce anything of real substance when their own developers are walking on eggshells, more worried about HR complaints than creating groundbreaking games. How can you make bold, impactful content when every idea is scrutinized for being too risky, too offensive, or too unsafe? It's a workplace where mediocrity is rewarded and where pushing boundaries, the very things that games are supposed to do, is seen as a liability. This workplace culture, this overreaction and overcorrection has infected just about every single industry that's out there. I worked in construction for 7 years up until last December, and the company that I worked for was more afraid of HR issues than they were of injuries. We worked with hydrogen sulfide and hydrogen cyanide, gases that, if released, could kill half of a city. You know, we've discussed modern audiences, the mythical, magical modern audiences, and soft modern games. We found the audience. It's the people that are running these companies nowadays. You have folks that are walking around on eggshells, afraid to say anything. Anecdotal, but just like a few weeks ago or a month ago or so, I remember I was live streaming, and instinctively I said something was retarded. I'm a millennial. We all grew up saying it. It's a product of...
Bro, I miss being able to just use that word liberally. Thankfully, where I currently work right now, we're not very PC, so we can just kind of say whatever we want as long as, like, you know, we're not in front of clients. But we do have a new employee that kind of looks like a HR meeting waiting to happen. I have not spoken much to this person.
Of my upbringing, say what you will. I didn't say it consciously, it just came out. And one of my chatters pops up and says, "How often do you say that word?" I banned the fuck out of them. Get the fuck out of here with that. Are you kidding me? People that are out there that are waiting, prepared to be offended. I'm sick of it. You cannot have workplaces that are out there where every single thing that you say, you have to watch every word that comes out of your mouth. Otherwise, it could be your livelihood. And I'm not saying that you can walk around saying anything. That's not what this is. Everybody knows. I think that's the most frustrating part when you have these kind of conversations, is that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Here's what's up. You have every single right to be offended. And I have every single motherfucking right to not give a shit.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, but the intellectual dishonesty around this kind of thing is just, it's fucking mind-boggling. We have workplace environments that actively work against any type of creative or constructive criticism. That's how you get games like this. This is how games and products are being ruined over time, is because nobody's allowed to criticize things properly. You have people in the workplace that are like, I don't think that these characters are going to be received well by the fans, but they're not allowed to say anything about it. They can't say it's not hot enough. It's not masculine enough. They can't say that because it's problematic to say so. Tame and safe are the antonyms of exciting and daring. Baldur's Gate 3 was exciting and daring. Star Wars Outlaws, tame and safe.
Here's the thing, with Baldur's Gate 3, you could make that game very daring. You can make it sexy. You could dress up the characters how you want. You could make it super tamed. You could play a different... You could avoid so many encounters in the game. So many of them you can just avoid because you want to do a pacifist run. So you can make the game super, super tamed. And at the same time, make it super edgy, if you want to call it that way, right? But people are playing Baldur's Gate not because it's edgy and not because it's tamed. People are playing Baldur's Gate because it's fun. It's straight up pure, unadulterated fun. And the more developers begin to understand that what people want is something fun more than a safe space, that is when Ubisoft will start making money again.
Whether it's their poor job at representing Japan or the trailers of Assassin's Creed, there are clearly levels of incompetency at work.
It's like, look at that. Let's look at that one more time, okay?
Tame and safe. Whether it's their poor job at representing Japan or the trailers of Assassin's Creed, there are clearly levels.
Look at the fall animation there. Look at the fall animation there. It looks like trash. This is a PS5 game put out by one of the biggest gaming juggernauts in the world, Ubisoft, who are experts in parkour, jumping, and traversal mechanics, and the fall animation for K-Vess looks like garbage. Why? Why does K-Vess's climbing, jumping, and falling animations look worse than Ezio's animations, which came out back on the PS3 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood? Explain that to me. Take a second.
Of incompetency at work. As many players have pointed out in the game trailers, the promotional materials that are meant to sell the game, you can see frame rate issues, texture issues, poor collision detection, weapons clipping through characters, and more. Controversies aside, this game doesn't look like it's ready for launch, and in fact, its developer just recently came out and canceled their appearance at Tokyo Game Show and announced that the game would be delayed until February. Along with the delay, Ubisoft CEO recently issued a memo to their employees that ended up getting leaked publicly, and it showcases just how out of touch this company is with their players. Rather than acknowledging their real missteps, they're clinging to critic scores, pointing out Star Wars Outlaws had a solid 76 on Metacritic. Oh, I didn't know that you were trying to sell the game to game reviewers. That makes a lot of sense, seeing as though that you're completely ignoring player feedback that clearly shows that your game is hovering in mediocrity. Even worse, they believe that Black Friday sales are somehow gonna magically turn things around, not realizing that no amount of discounting will make up for a product that fundamentally misses the mark and nobody's interested in. The memo reads more like a corporate spin than a genuine reflection of failure. No mention of the controversies or deeper issues that are plaguing the company. They talk about how all players want are highly polished games on launch day, when the truth is players are craving meaningful, risk-taking, authentic content, things that Ubisoft hasn't seen in decades.
Mind you, I do want polished content on day one. One of the issues a lot of these developers are having is that they're making their games bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Every game needs to last over 100 hours. Not true. Not every game needs to last 100 hours. However, if you make me a solid 20-hour game and it's polished, no frame rate issues, no disconnecting, no crashes, no weird clippings and stuff like that, I will be more than happy to pay full price for that. Make something solid. It doesn't have to be 100 hours. It does not have to be open world. Just make me a solid single player game, 15 to 20 hours, super polished, okay? And then have a cohesive story. Spider-Man 2, for example, 15 to 20 hour experience, very upsetting because it does feel like they cut out a huge chunk out of it. I believe they cut out like the third act. If the story had gone better, it would have been better received. However, the game was extremely polished. The game was so polished that most people ignored that the game felt a little unfinished and rushed. So, it's a great example as to how a game that is really, really well polished will be, well, much better received than a game that is just 100 hours for being 100 hours.
Even in their own memo to their own employees, they can't speak frankly about their mistakes. This sanitized messaging shows just how deeply disconnected the company is from the people that it should be listening to, the players. Interested in the perspective of the employees who received this memo, I had a few questions on their thoughts of the messaging and the leadership of the company. I asked, what has been the message from management to the staff about Ubisoft's declining sales? What do they believe is the reason behind it? They responded, the fun fact is they don't talk much about it. They mainly focus on the fact that they reached their financial objectives, which are mainly achieved through casual player sales, not the vocal gamer minority that are sick of what you described in your video. Also, something to know is that through the years, the number of management floors has increased to ridiculous amounts, so communication is often blurry unless they come directly from HQ, and even then, it's almost entirely corpo bullshit that isn't useful in the end. I asked another employee to verify the increase in management at the company, fearing that this is likely one of the biggest issues that's facing the company, seeing that lack of clear and creative vision. They painted a picture of a company that's not only overrun with management, but that's passively aggressive about removing higher paid and talented employees while slotting in underskilled and unexperienced management at a cheaper rate. They claim that Ubisoft as an employer shows little regard for their developers. What happens in practice is that they essentially push out senior engineers, promoting junior engineers to senior roles, after just a few years of experience, oftentimes with experience in just one engine. Meanwhile, experienced developers with far broader skill sets are being overlooked. This constant cycle of turnover with inexperienced leaders leads to noticeable drops in quality, with bugs appearing in their games. The passionate, dedicated developers leave, while those who are just going through the motions stay behind. This doesn't just affect the technical quality of their games, but also impacts the design and creativity. For instance, you'll find designers working on FPS mechanics who have never played an FPS game before, or engineers who don't understand how the mechanics they're building are supposed to feel. There's a lack of passion and skill across the board, and the results are obvious.
It's crazy to me that by trying to save money by cutting out highly paid senior developers, they are now losing money. Think about that. Think about this.
That line about designers working on FPS games and leading FPS projects struck a chord with me. Not long ago, Ubisoft released X-Defiant, a military shooter that was meant to compete with the likes of Call of Duty. However, since the game's release, they've lost the vast majority of their player base, with Ubisoft claiming that the game isn't dying, despite it reportedly losing 94% of its players on X.
Listen, it was 94%, but we got 1% back. The game is fine, Ubisoft is fine, everything is A-okay. You know what Ubisoft is right now? It's like the image, that meme of the dog where the building is on fire and the dog is like, this is fine. That's what's going on at Ubisoft right now.
Xbox. Why is X-Defiant ran into so many issues? Netcode, hit registration, and
I don't even know what X-Defiant is. I've never heard of this.
General shooter gameplay issues. Common problems that are normally ironed out well before a game ever hits the market, especially a shooter. It's core to the gameplay. If you're playing a live service shooter, all you do is shoot. That's the gameplay. But when the shooting doesn't work, you don't have a game. Ubisoft's leadership is completely disconnected from the reality of game development and player expectations. The problems stem from a bloated management structure that's prioritizing reaching financial targets through casual player sales, rather than listening to the core gaming community that's sick of their tired formulas. Even their own developers are frustrated as they watch as talented senior engineers are pushed out of the studios and inexperienced juniors are promoted far too quickly, leading to a noticeable drop in quality. It's no wonder their games are riddled with bugs and lack any real innovation. This company is more focused on appearances rather than creating meaningful, engaging content. The quality of their games doesn't matter as long as they aren't offending anyone. When you see the issues that plague Assassin's Creed Shadows, the pandering, the generic virtue, the lies, the cover-ups, and the...
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, let's just... So, let's watch this one more time.
Rather than creating meaningful, engaging...
There is no dirt here. There is zero dirt here.
Content. The quality of their games doesn't matter as long as they aren't offending anyone. When you see the issues that plague Assassin's Creed Shadows, the pandering, the generic...
Why? Why is there a dust cloud forming up when she slides? And I know there's a bunch of fog everywhere. I get it. Fog is very much white. Dust cloud is gray. And it's coming from underneath Cave S. I know this is small. I know it's not a big thing. But attention to detail. You are putting a gray dust cloud when someone is sliding on a metal floor. That's where we're going to be ending the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. While you're down there, the link will be there so you can watch the rest of the video. Don't forget to comment, share, like, favorite, and subscribe, because we're trying to hit 400 before the end of the month. And if you don't want to help, well, remember, at the end of the day, I'm just some guy on the internet, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. If you want to see more of my face, be sure to click the video you see on screen right now.